To implement something like this, you use the new digital crown rotation modifier provided by SwiftUI. In its really simple form here, it only takes 3 parameters. The first one we need to worry about is the binding. Now, like any other SwiftUI component which takes a binding, this provides the source of truth for how this modifier interacts with the system. In the case of a free-scrolling list, we might want to bind to the offset of the view which we're moving. We also need to tell the digital crown where we're going from and where we're going through. These define the limits of the sequence over which the digital crown will move. To see what this looks like in action, we can see that now, as we move the digital crown, represented by the red dot, we'll provide linear feedback as well as some nice haptic feedback and a rubber banding behavior at either limit of the digital crown's sequence. Next, if you wanted to build something a little more custom, for example, like this picker, which we've provided as part of, which is included in the new calculator application, we're no longer scrolling content. Instead, we're picking between discrete elements and using the digital crown to move from one to the next. We can use the exact same digital crown rotation modifier with many of the same parameters. Now, these parameters, here instead of going over a scrollable list, we're selecting between the number of people and going from 1 through 15 of them. Now, the new parameter here is the by parameter. And by allows us to specify the stride along which the digital crown sequence will provide that haptic feedback and settling behavior for you. To see what this looks like, we can see now that the digital crown will provide haptic feedback as we go from one element to the next, and it's just that easy. And finally, if you wanted to do something even more custom, for example, the interface that we've had in the alarms, where here the digital crown is controlling a view which is moving around a circle. It's no longer limited at either end of its sequence. Here we come back to the familiar digital crown rotation modifier. This modifier takes all of the same parameters which we've already been talking about, as well as I want to introduce 2 new ones. First is sensitivity. Sensitivity allows us to specify how much rotation we need to apply to the digital crown to move from one element to the next. And finally, we have the continuous parameter. This parameter allows us to specify that we no longer want the digital crown to stop at either limit of its sequence. In action, we can see now we have this really nice interaction where we can go all the way back around and continue moving the digital crown in one direction. There's no more limits to this sequence. Finally, to let the digital crown get its input, we need to tell the system how to get it there. To do that, we introduce the focusable modifier. Now, focusable will feel very familiar to you if you've used other UI frameworks which we provide. This is a lot like the UI focus engine in UIKit or First Responder, which I'm sure everyone here has used before. And by just adding this focusable modifier, we can now use the digital crown to update the people picker, tap over to tip, and continue using the crown to update the now focused view. To learn a lot more about how Focusable works, please go check out the SwiftUI and All Devices talk. To see how we can take advantage of this and to build some really awesome interactions in Pop Quiz, let's go back to demo. So Matthew had already shown the really nice card list at the entry point of the application, or the topic list at the entry to the application. But I want to build out a really cool card list. Now, we already have a nice list here where we're seeing these flashcards in a scrollable view, which we can still see in the preview. But wouldn't it be nice if we had a really cool custom interaction driven completely by the digital crown? To do that, what I first want to do is replace this scroll view with a Z-stack. Now, we'll see that the flashcards are no longer stacked vertically, but are instead stacked one on top of each other. But I promise you that every one of them are still there. Next, because we're going to be building something using the digital crown, we need to supply the focusable modifier, as well as the digital crown rotation modifier. Now, there's a lot of parameters here, but these are the exact same parameters which we've already just talked about. So let's go through them one by one. First, we're going to need to supply a binding, or the source of truth, where the digital crown will be updating its value. To do that, we need to provide some state. Here, I want to provide the current index into which this custom interaction will be moving between. Next, we supply that binding to that state back into the digital crown rotation. Here, I want to use an animated version of that binding, so as the digital crown updates, it refreshes this view in an animated fashion. Next, we need to specify how far we're going from, as well as where we're going through in this sequence. Here, we're going to the second to last card in the sequence to achieve the effect which we're going for. Next, we need to specify the by value, which is the stride between each of these cards, as well as the sensitivity, which here I want to specify a low sensitivity so that each card gets a lot of weight to it, and I can make sure I'm looking at the card which I want to look at. And then finally, to actually get the nice effect we want to look at, I've already written this card transformed modifier. Now, this is a custom view modifier, which I've already written, which will provide all of the 3D effects and allow the card to update with the current index. And then we're passing in the current index into this modifier so that it's updated every time this view is re-rendered. And that's it. Now we can go build and run this application. And as it comes up in the simulator, we'll see the same view, which Matthew had already showed us at the beginning. We can go through this list, select what we want to see, and see that now we have this nice interface, which we can use, scroll through using the digital crown. And that's it. And if anyone does know the answer to this question, please let me know. I'm really looking to get the answer. So that was awesome. We've seen how we can build some really great experiences using SwiftUI and to take advantage of everything that the Apple Watch has to offer to get us there. But there's more to it than that. Now we have the same UI framework across all of our platforms. You can take the same concepts you've learned building your awesome iPhone application and apply them directly to building experiences on Apple Watch. We really can't wait to see what you build now that you can make the interfaces you've always wanted to make on Apple Watch. There's a ton of great sessions to talk about SwiftUI at the conference this year. And to learn more about how to make those 3D animations, definitely go check out the Building Custom Views with SwiftUI talk. Enjoy the conference. Thank you.